Hey everybody, this is Nate Smoyer, and you're listening to the Tech Nest Podcast. This is the show where we sit down with the leaders in real estate and technology to find out what they're doing to transform the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. If you've got an interest in real estate and technology, stick around. You're in the right place.
Well, hey Blake, welcome to the show.
Hey man, how are you? I'm so glad to be here.
I am doing well. You know, I felt like I was going to tell you this before the show started, but I was like, you know what? I'll wait till the show. Today's show is brought to you by Bastard Cat Culshan IPA. It is 5 o'clock somewhere.
I'm frankly offended that you're drinking alone. You didn't tell me. I could have come prepared.
I'm not drinking alone. You're right here with me.
Well, I didn't get the heads up on bringing my own beer.
It's true. Every show is BYOB. I've never announced that before, but just today, you know, it felt like a Monday. So I was like, well, Fridays feel better. Let's make it feel like a Friday. Well, anyway, I'm excited to do the show here for you. Before we go too far, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Start off with who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Blake Miller. I'm the founder and CEO of Homebase, as well as the host of the Future of Living podcast. At Homebase, we work with apartment owners to make apartment buildings smart. And that means a lot of different things. But ultimately, we're building the first steps towards an autonomous building that kind of just works for everybody. And it makes a much happier resident experience, but also helps make the property owners generate new revenue. As well as save a lot of money on a lot of different things, whether it's utilities, efficiencies, and across the board.
All right, we are going to get into Homebase because that is the purpose of this interview. But before I go any further, can you tell people a little bit about your podcast? Because I want to make sure other people know that there are a few podcasts in the space of real estate that get outside of just all the how to buy a home with no money down, standard stuff. What's your podcast all about, and what's it called, and how do people find it?
Yeah, totally. So it's called The Future of Living. You can find it at futurelivingpodcast.com. But also, it's just search Future of Living on Spotify, Apple. We're everywhere. Really, we got it started back about a year ago, and as we've been building Homebase, we just get to talk to so many smart people that are literally building the future, whether it's technology, whether it's all of the folks that are in kind of our technology ecosystem, part of our IoT platform. So we've had folks from Allegiant and Honeywell or Residio now, Rob Martins from Allegiant and Scott Harkins from Honeywell, but folks that are building the future, but also, a lot of different folks that are either in smart cities, government policy, regulations, things like that. And then, also a lot of real estate developers. And all of these folks are building the future in a lot of different ways. All of it is going to equal, how are we going to live in the future? And so that's why we started the podcast. I wanted to start having these conversations really to see how other people were viewing the future, coming at it from all these different lenses, especially as technology is really starting to hit real estate. And that was really kind of the genesis. And we've been fortunate enough to have some incredibly smart people that are from all different walks of life all over the country and frankly the world that are literally building the future of living.
Yeah, and for people who are just listening in and can't see, right behind Blake is one of those smart light bulbs that has one of the blue hues to it. Is that one of those that you can make change colors based on like?
Yeah, I was looking down. I was just going to change it for you.
He's changing the color right now from your phone.
There we go. Yeah, from my phone. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Okay, I got to put those in my tenant's house and just play some jokes on them or something maybe.
Totally right. Yeah.
I don't advocate for that. Okay, so Homebase. Talk to me about Homebase. What's the real big problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah, so the big problem that we're trying to solve is really kind of a new problem for everybody. There's technology, the smart home, the smart building, all of these different things. But there's really not, or things that are connected to the Internet of Things, right? And property owners especially want to be able to take advantage of these, whether it's from the amenity perspective, sure that, things are smart, cutting edge. It's a great amenity for all these different things. But also there's a lot of folks that want to take advantage of it just from the operational management side of this. Utility stays, operational, workflow automation, all of these different things. And the Internet of Things is here. But the thing is they're not all connected. And so it takes a platform like ours to kind of pull all these things together and make them work together. If a refrigerator needs to create its own maintenance ticket, if it has a problem, well, how does it communicate with then to the lock to make sure that the refrigerator repairman can get in to service that without having the maintenance guy in the loop or anything like that? That's a future that we want to be able to create, and we are creating. But today, with all of the smart stuff, it's really hard to make that happen. And so that's why we exist, to kind of make an operating system for the building and make all these things work together.
Yeah. Oh man, I could think of so many applications for this. Like, there's got to be a way to we got to get like the pot roast from the fridge to the crock pot at just like 10 a.m. and start the timer and maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but it's so interesting. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. You talk about the amenities and why this is important and it's in demand. And I shared with you before the show that I literally personally just went through this in shopping real estate in Chicago. For those who don't know or haven't caught up, I'm moving to Chicago for a new role with Avail. And
which is really awesome. Big time congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super pumped on it. And
Ryan and the team over there is awesome.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, our number one listened to episode is with Ryan Kuhn. So as he's going to be a guest on the Future of Living, you're going to have a new number one episode probably.
Can't wait. It's good to do.
But when I was shopping for an apartment in Chicago, we started by using all the online marketplaces and websites. And that was okay, but it was actually there was a few challenges, and maybe you can address this, and probably you've thought of this. Is one thing was we were noticing that some apartments that were a little outside of the range we wanted to be in also included a lot of the amenities, and they started making the difference for us. So how are you maybe tackling that challenge as apartment buildings, if they start including all these amenities, they have to charge more, right?
In some cases, right? But also some of this is becoming table stakes in different tiers of the market. But one thing I'll say, and I'll back up a little bit, what we were talking about is Wi-Fi being included in the building.
Right.
That's a really awesome amenity. And that's something that, even taking a step back of what we do at Homebase, one of the first things we do in a building to make it smart is we deploy infrastructure. And that infrastructure is a building-wide Wi-Fi infrastructure. And that comes in a lot of different ways these days. A lot of the major internet service providers are providing like bulk internet, or they'll come in and they'll cut a deal with the building or the property manager, and the property manager will get a small commission or whatever.
Right.
But we needed that infrastructure to be able to connect all of the different things. We didn't want to go down the route with some of our competitors have done, where they put a cellular gateway in, and that gateway is cellular based when the unit's vacant, but it has to be on top of the residence Wi-Fi when it's occupied. And that still gives the property owner some sort of control. And we think that's just a kind of a weird value prop there. That and a number of other reasons, we really went back to these buildings need infrastructure. Once you put this kind of infrastructure in, whether you start with smart locks and smart thermostats and light switches in the unit, what happens year down the road or 2 years down the road, once you've recognized some ROI or some brand new smart thing comes out that you want to try to take advantage of, how are you going to connect that in the future? So making the building smart from the inside out for us was connected infrastructure. And one of the things then we recognized was, a third of America is cutting the cord. So a lot of people just care about getting internet. I don't need cable. I don't need anything. I just want to be able to get connected. And
what is cable?
What cable? I agree. Why can't I just add a much bigger subscription, list to my bank account? But we recognize that, and so with some of the new advances in technology, especially around software-defined networking and some of these things, we recognize that not only help make the building more secure on some of the smart things with the way of managing that network, but we could also then open up a new amenity, this Wi-Fi as amenity. You could set up bandwidth tiers so that residents can maybe start on the free community Wi-Fi that's only a couple megabits, and it's kind of like living in a hotel, right? You know, you get enough access to surf the internet, check email, do those things. But if you want to stream or do whatever, you pay slightly more. And if you're a property owner, you put this infrastructure in. This infrastructure is there to power all the smart stuff, so you can get all the back end operational efficiencies and all of that, and control those things. But now through the app, residents can actually upgrade, and you can generate revenue off of the off of the rest of that network. So residents can literally upgrade from their free tier to 50 megabit or 100 megabit tier all through the app and have it automatically added to their rent bill. And that delta, all goes back to the property owner.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you guys are doing is you're delivering convenience to the consumer, but you're also offering some upside to the property owner or property management company by providing opportunities for upsells. Where originally, in most cases, those upsells wouldn't exist for the property manager or owners.
You're right. Today the upsells are, oh, you've got a dog, great. We'll charge you a little bit extra for dog rent and that
well, let's be real. Pet rent is not an upsell. I'm losing every time.
Right, totally. And that's just kind of where that is, right? But you start to look at these other things, and not only does it help pay for some of these things up front, but we look at it as you're already paying the largest share of your wallet every month as a resident to your property manager. And as you were saying, kind of when you start pricing in all these amenities out of the gate, you might price some people out that just want to live in that building, but they didn't, whatever filter they had capped out. It's the same price, but everything else was included.
Yeah.
The ability to be able to capture somebody's share of wallet without having to raise your rents because you have smart tech or whatever. That's really where we look at the opportunity for the property owners here. You're capturing a wallet, more of their share of wallet, and you're not having to raise your rents to do so, but still providing a much higher level of living.
If anyone from Zumper or Apartment List or Zillow is listening to this, what I need utilities included as like a filter option. I need or maybe estimated utility costs, and if it's included that way, because I'll tell you what, even thinking about it, so the building that we ended up going with was a condo. The Wi-Fi, and they told us TV's included as well, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's nice, it's cool, but I'd rather just the rebate on that one. But with the internet being included, I did the math really quickly. We're moving from an hour and a half north outside of Seattle to downtown Chicago. I knew we were going to be paying more in rent, but it's actually not all that much more. And the internet, that's $100, $110 every month, all day long. It's not a small portion. And so it's a big thing and that's just one piece. But so I don't want to hone in too much on the Wi-Fi. What are some of the other solutions, though? Because I know you guys have an entire array. You have a full collection. What are some of the other solutions that Homebase provides?
Totally. So we are kind of a full platform for building management. So everything from smart access control, being able to both fob into a building, manage access through the other amenity areas like the gym or whatever, video surveillance through a building, HVAC systems in partnership with like LG. That's throughout the rest of the building. Inside the unit, we do everything from the partnership with Schlage at the door, so smart deadbolt or lock at the door. That also syncs with the fob, so it's one fob for all your access, right? So whether you're on your phone or via fob, you have multiple ways to access your unit, your door. And then inside the thermostats, smart light switches. We partner with Leviton there to work on that. Smart appliances, voice control, really anything that can get connected, well, we'll connect with it. And we provided an experience for it. So our apps for all the different users of the building, whether it's the property manager, maintenance staff, or the residents, they all have their own apps with different control, insight to what's happening with their. And we've built some other basic kind of property management functions into this, really so we can start automating the living experience of the building. So things like paying your rent is built into the Homebase platform. Things like requesting maintenance by the resident is built into that platform. And obviously on the other side of the screen, the property manager has their dashboard and kind of control and command center to control and manage all these things. And all of it is so that it ultimately can all tie together. So kind of, as I mentioned there, got a building that has smart appliances, like we've got a pilot launched here in Kansas City in a senior living community. That smart appliance can detect, the refrigerator can detect what's wrong with it. It can create its own maintenance ticket. That maintenance ticket not only alerts the resident and say, hey, there's an issue with your refrigerator, we're going to get it fixed for you. So the resident feels like, wow, that's amazing that somebody just is on it for me. But the property manager can assign it to either the maintenance staff or assign it even to their third-party vendor. And with that ticket is all of the diagnostics data of what's going on. So whether it's, hey, the water filter needs changed or whatever, we know what it is, and it limits the amount of times that somebody has to go see what's wrong with the refrigerator because the resident just said, hey, there's something wrong with the refrigerator.
Right.
Well, now it just comes with that diagnostics data. We know exactly what to do. The service provider can go to the building and nobody even has to be on site to let them in. They can get secure access into the building. We know that they're a background check service provider, so that we know that they're safe to come into the building. When they gain access to the unit, everybody gets notified. The resident gets notified that Joey, the maintenance guy, or Joey, the service provider, is then fixing their refrigerator. The manager knows that's getting done, and that's all happens automatically through smart technology. And that's what we're building through our app.
It just makes so much sense. It actually makes me think back to one of the apartments I went to look at. Now I don't know how this would, automation, you could solve this, but I looked at one of the sinks in the bathroom, and I could see that the water had been dripping for a long time. Just got a little slow drip. And I said to the property manager, I'm looking out for him. And I said, hey, how long has this sink been leaking like this? She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, look, you can see the marking of where the water's been dripping for a long time. And while you might not be able to connect that to an app yet, delayed maintenance on anything not reported can cost a lot of extra money that it shouldn't have had to cost. I mean, a water filter, changing out a water filter, not a big deal. But, anything with a filter, not changing the filter when it's clogged or bad or worn out, that's what can cause additional issues. So something so small like that actually can prevent a bigger maintenance issue or repair issue. So I can see that immediately you can probably save yourself, quite a bit of money within the first year just on maintenance tickets and also bigger projects by doing better regular maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, so not only, it always depends on what smart technology you put in your unit. You can put in leak detection, things like that can help alert. But it helps with preventative maintenance scheduling. You get into a lot of places, a lot of apartment buildings maybe only replace their air filters for the HVAC system in every unit once a year, maybe. Well, if you do it every 300 hours or so, you can extend the life of the unit, but also you can save almost $100 a year in utilities just by having clean air filters and those sorts of things. So you start to look at the management of the supply chain of actually having to do this across hundreds, if not thousands of units at a time that you might own. And what does it take for a person to order all of those things, notify the residents that it's going to happen, air filter replacement's going to happen every quarter or whatever it is, schedule the maintenance guy to get there. That's a whole supply chain issue. If you can just take all of that out and automate it based off of when things need to get done or when the service needs to be done just by the device, you can start to save a lot of time. But also then, as you mentioned, the preventative maintenance helps save you a lot of money in the long run. And unfortunately, we don't know how much yet. But I think if you buy into that smart technology is going to help things be more efficient and extend the life of all these things with all the data and the insight that we can get, we're going to get there. But that's why we also have come up with ways that you can generate revenue off of this stuff in the meantime while you're waiting to kind of recognize it, the cost savings. So you really understand where your NOI ends up at.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I want to shift here and find out a little bit more about who's using Homebase. So, it sounds like, for the most part, what we've been talking about is a scenario of an apartment building. Is this suitable for a small time investor who maybe has 2 single families, or is this primarily staying in the larger multifamily?
Yeah, so, we have buildings everywhere from about 10 units on up to 300 plus. And the model, as it gets into the smaller units, in terms of the direct return on investment from being able to like resell Wi-Fi and all those things, your ROI there just gets smaller as the buildings get smaller, just because you don't have as many units to share some of the overhead and the expense of some of these things. But that said, you can absolutely deploy our system and our platform in smaller units, especially for folks that own 50 to 100 rental homes across a city or something that are constantly running around town and, unlocking the door for a maintenance guy or whatever. Installing some of the smart locks and some of these other basic things definitely becomes a value there. And so we have a lot of interest there. We're working on several different things in a much smaller capacity. But today, most of our buildings kind of average the 75 to 150 unit type building.
What are some of the most, and thanks for clarifying that, what are some of the most common reasons people give you as their reasons that said, you know what, we decided to deploy Homebase because, what is it?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. One, the Wi-Fi is very intriguing. Everybody feels and knows that that's a very high check mark in terms of a resident's view of a building. High speed internet, how easy is it to get, all of those different things. So people property owners know they view that as an amenity, but they're also recognizing that it sets them up to be able to do all these other smart things. So the combination of that and the combination of our smart access control has really been the kind of the 2 things. And, the Wi-Fi powers everything. It also helps generate the revenue or new revenue. And pun intended, the locks literally unlock all of the future. So, as we've talked about amenities and all these other things, the ability to open up new amenities to your residents through the platform, things like, do you want to order a house cleaner, order a dog walker or anything that you can pay for through the app, give access to your unit, that can all be managed through the app, and it can be managed because you have smart locks now. So these kind of home service providers and all of these different things really lead into, as we said earlier, the future of living.
So I want to, for just a hot minute, I'm going to invoke fear to every dog owner listening. There was a story recently, and I didn't see it catch a lot of media attention. I found it through a friend on Instagram. There was a couple in New York City, I believe, might have been Brooklyn. They had one of those dog walkers from WAG. They hired one. Well, then they used a different dog walker. The challenge was they had a lockbox with a key. So a little single key punch code, or they had maybe a keypad on their door, but it wasn't a true smart lock. It was just a keypad.
Sure.
Well, the one dog walker who was not scheduled to showed up and stole the dog. Now, thank goodness.
Oh, wow.
Thank goodness they had cameras. They had cameras in the building. They were able to quickly find out who did it and return a dog. But this is one of those scenarios where, as we continue to, enable a lot of subcontractor services, cameras are great because they see, but the true smart locks, and this is something that is I'm finally getting it. Truthfully, I have to self-admit here, I finally get it. The one-time access code is a big deal because you can't copy the key, you can't copy the code, and if it's auto-generated, it's far safer than any combination I could come up with each and every time. And I think that's a really unique, obviously that's a unique scenario, but that's a worst case scenario, And so something like what you're talking about here, this prevents that from being able to happen, so to speak.
Well, we try to go actually a slightly step further. Our locks are all Bluetooth, and they don't have pin codes on them as the Schlage Control Engage locks that we have started working with. And because we've seen and we've heard the horror stories of folks that that for some reason the pin code doesn't get changed, or even that one-time pin code,
like the Airbnb units that operate like that.
Yeah, and so we kind of made a conscious decision to go this route, and we have folks that frankly haven't wanted to use our platform because we didn't have an integration with a lock that has a pin code. But we see this kind of Bluetooth credentialing as a way to be a little bit more secure.
Yeah, I do like that. And this actually transitions into my next question pretty easily here. So, there's the software is kind of really what makes all this stuff that much smarter. But in order for the software to work, it depends on smart hardware. And there's 1,001 different hardwares out there, and some of them are probably easier to work with than others. And some of them probably deliver, greater impact and utility versus others. How do you work through all those variables to decide what features to focus on building first to make the experience of living smarter, safer, more efficient, all those things?
Well, honestly, it's a partnership mentality at first, and that partnership is with our owners, our developers. Of the apartment buildings that we're working with. What are the experiences? What are the living experiences that they're trying to provide? And then kind of start to work backwards from there of what we need to be able to provide that. And that's really where we started. And so we went out and have tried to find the best of breed hardware partners and integration partners that we can to be able to then build those experiences, build the automations to make all of those things happen. And that's really the approach that we've taken. It's really hard because all of these different things, they give you different controls, different accesses. There's some open APIs. There's some that you have to work directly with the company to get access to their APIs and all of these different things. But then even like the different functions of the different locks, right? Or the different thermostats or whatever, they all have different nuances that, you might be able to turn your thermostat on, but you might not get all the data and control back out of it, because they don't expose that part of the API. And so as much as we want to be an open platform and we believe in being an open platform, the reality is to create this is you have to really build an ecosystem, as kind of I was talking about before, and go deep with one or two partners in each kind of category, that you're integrated with. And that's really the approach we've been taking. And, the other piece of this is the smart home, or the kind of this whole smart building, smart home approach. It's always been focused that, well, we're going into a single family home, and therefore like there's an owner and maybe a family, or, the owner is the family and the admin and all these different things. But in a multifamily, there's a lot of different users. The owner is the person that actually owns the building, and the resident is technically the admin for 12 months, but they need to get wiped after a while. But what happens if the maintenance guy's in there checking things? He needs to be able to have, access while he's working. It's just all these different considerations. And, the smart home is still new. It's still very early. And you got to think about all these different permissions and user types and different use cases.
Yeah. You're totally right. I mean, the gap is going to be, well, to some degree, while the gap closes, it'll also get bigger between, probably generational gap is going to plays into that.
I think you got the gap, and just I think it's going to change how properties are managed as well.
Yeah.
So not just the integration side, but then, who's using these things that,
I can tell you the building that we ended up finding a condo to rent probably won't be a customer anytime soon. They were sending me PDFs to
doesn't surprise me.
to sign. I'm like, you guys, where's your dot loop? Where's your VeriSign or some sort? Like, what are you doing? What is this?
We totally agree with that. And, I think there is, for as many as they're just like that, there are a lot of very innovative and very forward-thinking real estate developers that are really taking the next step of how we're going to live in the future too. So it's interesting to see kind of the barbell here as we've been entering the market and growing. Is you've got some that are like, wow, that we didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And then you've got these that are, barely moving into digital payments.
Yeah. I think what's going to happen here, I'll give a prediction. Here's a rare prediction that I give out in the show. I think what's going to happen is the buildings that figure out the right balance and they really truly embrace the amenities. Because this, the amenities give people back their time. And that's what is so valuable, is to get back your time. So on a lot of things.
Time is an amenity. I mean, it's like the paradox.
Well, and it's limited. It's finite.
Mm-hmm.
So
the only thing you're not going to get it back.
Right. So
I talk about this a lot. I think the future is definitely going to be about time arbitrage. People are really waking up to what their time is worth.
Yep.
And I think that if you're a podcast listener, Naval was just on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about this as well, and he was just saying how people need to think about their time as like worth $1,000 an hour. Now, if you get that or not, it's up to you. But if you're wanting to, all of us being knowledge workers these days too, this weekend, if I need to recharge my batteries by just hanging out with my family instead of cleaning my house, well, if my time's worth $1,000 an hour and I can get my house cleaned for $100, man, I should really think about doing that.
Yeah.
And because I live in an apartment that with smart locks and all these other things and enables that to happen, I don't even have to be there to let her in, or the guy in, or whatever to be there. So, wow, that's really powerful, right? I didn't just save an hour; I just saved 2 hours because I didn't have to be there 30 minutes ahead of time and whatever they left. And I think if we create these experiences, that's going to be the valuable thing.
And I think what will happen is this will, the buildings that do this well, or even garden communities, I think this could work really well for garden communities.
I totally agree.
And, those will be the ones that are able to push the rents just a little bit higher. It's not whether they have granite countertop or not. Whether they have big kitchens or small kitchens, whether they have a stacked washer dryer or shared washing services on site. I think that these will be the ones that, and those are just like pet peeves of mine, like things I want. I think these buildings will see greater rents, and then that we all know what that means. Then your higher rents. These are services that are kind of baked into your operations costs, so you have better margins already. You're running more efficiently. You're running leaner. You're going to have better spreads. And so whether you're refining, cashing out, whether you're looking to sell and move up, whatever the play is, you're going to get a better return. And I think of it like the way WeWork has reimagined office space, and now what they're dubbing is the WeWork effect on office buildings. You'll have I think we'll have an interesting effect on apartment buildings and garden style buildings just the same.
It's happening. It's coming. And I totally agree. And we look at it kind of, and say this a little tongue in cheek. If you start providing all of these services, all these things are like all the things you hate about adulting, right? Like, man, I got one extra bill. I've got to do my laundry. I've got to do all these extra things. But man, if I could find a place that I could just move in and does it for me, like I'm probably going to stay there a couple of years unless a life event happens. To me, I've got to move away because I don't want to have to figure out how do I become an adult again and set up all these other bills again and do all this. I want to live. I want to rent where I live and own where I vacation. I think there's a lot of the young professionals that or our age groups that are growing up as executives that are really coming, to view it that way.
Yeah, I'll leave this point, or I'll end this with this one anecdote. I saw an ad. I think it was a billboard. I'm pretty sure it was a financial advisor or investment fund company, and it said something along the lines of, they say millennials don't want to work, and then it said prove them right. And it was for retirement. Building and planning your retirement. I was like, okay, you won't find me putting my money there, but I dig it. I like the message there. Okay, so I want to shift here.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, are you seeing any particular cities or geographic areas? And I'm especially interested in Kansas City, because while Kansas City has been building its tech reputation, it's not known necessarily. You don't think Kansas when you hear the word tech. No offense.
Not
but,
usually. Yeah.
But, like...
A lot of flyover country sometimes.
Are you seeing any particular geographic areas adopting this type of approach and mindset more so than others?
We get... The answer is no. I think it's happening up really kind of everywhere. Everywhere that there is high job growth, wherever there's high job growth, there is both a problem and a housing boom, except for San Francisco, I think. But, there is it's happening everywhere. Smart technology is going to grow everywhere. What's been most surprising to us, so much of our inbound is international. Asia, Canada, a lot of these international markets are hyper interested in kind of what have you. It's like leapfrogging where they're currently at, and really building a lot of new housing that is just the next cutting edge thing, and leapfrogging a way of doing it. And so we have a lot of international interest and things that we're working on.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like what you guys have put together, it doesn't really matter geographic boundary, because if it's got doors and internet, if it has lights, if it requires communication, it works.
Pretty much. I mean, the only considerations are how much does a bandwidth cost getting into the building, and the payment platform. Those are really the only things we consider.
Got it. What's been helping drive some of that growth and attention? I mean, obviously, you guys are doing some of your own marketing. I love the strategy a bit on the podcast. I get podcasting strategies. There's a lot of different ways you can leverage that to get in front of potential partners or people who adopt your vision and share that for you as well. But what would you say has been one of your key drivers of growth?
One of our key drivers in growth, I think, is just our value prop. And not only do we have this platform that can help make you money and connect the things, we're the only ones that are pulling all these different things together. So I think it's the value prop there. But I think the other piece of what it is kind of our customer support team, as well as kind of our just partnership approach. I don't mean it in a way that it excludes anybody, but Homebase isn't for everybody, right? And so we work with our partners and go very, very deep with our partners to help develop these new solutions and just unique experiences, and that requires a lot of hands-on support. Things that some people would say, "Oh, well, that doesn't scale," and you're like, "Well." It does scale in the long run, because you do things that don't scale until it does, until it needs to, yep. And you figure those things out. And right now, a lot of that is just being very hands-on with our partners, and helping them grow their portfolios. And as we do that, we're going to be successful.
I love it. What's one thing that you guys have tried over the years that maybe didn't work, or you had to pivot away from?
So it's really what led us into doing Wi-Fi. Is we went to market originally with a cellular gateway, and we really we didn't see up for it scaling in a big way. And so, I call it an evolution. It's definitely a pivot from how we went to market, but evolving to the Wi-Fi as the infrastructure that connects all the different things and provides that was definitely a pivot for us. I think the other thing was deciding not to support all different types of locks and just go really deep with one, because those two things are really our view is the foundation of a smart building, of the connectivity and the locks, and then everything else from there is just kind of the add-on.
Yeah, and that's with Schlage, right?
That's with Schlage, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they're good locks. I remember when I worked for a home builder on the East Coast, my responsibility was we use Schlage for everything, but we would always rekey our sample homes and trailers, and that was my job, was to go get the locks rekeyed. And so I remember the first time someone pronounced Schlage for me, I was like, oh, thank God.
Right.
I don't know how to read this. What is this? But they're good locks.
I hear Schlag on that, yeah.
Yeah. But that's all we used. And we were doing, when I started with them, we were doing a few hundred homes a year in delivery.
Wow.
We used Schlage for everything. So yeah, well, let's,
they've been incredible partners.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've been around for a long time. They're a trusted name. It's obvious why you'd want to go with someone like Schlage. Mm-hmm. Well, let's shift gears here a little bit. I want to talk about something, because not that you guys haven't. I want to talk about fundraising for a minute, because you guys have done a little bit of fundraising, but comparatively speaking, you've only done a little bit of fundraising to a lot of other companies in space. So let me start with that. Why aren't you out there chasing down the millions of dollars that are waiting for all the companies in real estate tech?
We have great partners, behind us and are supporting us. We've also been generating revenue. So we've been able to kind of, build a strong foundation there. It's not to say that we're not going to raise, some money here soon. But we've really focused on building a really strong foundation before, trying to pour gasoline on the fire. Now, with that said, it's not that I don't want to quote unquote own the market, but I don't think that this market is winnable. And I think that there is a lot of approaches out there that's kind of the standard VC approach or VC invested approach, where we're going to go spend a bunch of money and try to win and own the market. And this isn't a market that's winnable, or in our opinion. Not that we don't want to have as big a market share as we possibly can, but we're just trying to be very pragmatic about that. And so be very responsible and capital efficient in how we build the company. And, we're in this for the long haul. And so if we take that, if we take $20 million and go try to spend it, that's not going to build a sustainable company.
You'll have to find some Internet of Things tech to help put you to sleep at night from all the stress.
Yeah. No, I mean, we plan to be around for a long time. We plan, to be great partners with our development partners, but we've also got a strong ecosystem of supporters behind us as well. So, don't take the amount that we've raised for the strength of our company.
Very cool. Yeah. And I don't mean that as a dig, as, hey, why haven't you raised any money? I mean, you've raised more than I'm
ever. Proud of it, actually.
I think that it's a little bit of an anomaly in the industry. And, I think that there's something to be said. Like, I appreciate the fact that you point out you're generating revenue. You're looking to build it in a sustainable fashion. And let's be honest, there's how many apartment buildings in the United States that don't yet have anything remotely close to anything smart? It's not that the market opportunity is small.
No. And I don't take anything away. And I don't take anything away from any of our competitors. There's a lot of really smart people that are attacking kind of the smart building, smart home for apartment approach.
Yeah.
Frankly, there's, like I said, a lot of great smart people working on it. We're creating an industry. We're creating something that's brand new. That's going to change how buildings are managed, and it's going to change how we live in it. And there shouldn't be just one company. There should be a lot of different people taking a lot of approaches, and it's going to challenge all of us to do all the right things. And that's not just doing the right thing by our customer, but it's doing the right thing by the end user as well, and thinking about privacy and thinking about data and helping to create standards and things that all of us can, help for the whole, community.
Very awesome. Well, hey, we're going to transition the show here. We're getting towards the bottom of the show, and I'd like to start a game called For the Future. So For the Future is a segment where I get to ask each guest who comes on the show to give their best predictions based on the following 4 questions. Blake, are you ready to play?
Let's play.
All right, let's do it. Question number 1. What does Homebase look like 1 year from now?
I think we're going to be bigger. We're going to be in probably 10 states. We're going to have probably 30 to 40 people on our team, and really be executing at a high level. And I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Question number 2. What will the housing market look like 1 year from now?
Housing market in terms of like the whole market or residential or
this is intentionally ambiguously asked so that you'll answer it with your lens.
I'm with it. Okay. I think we're still going to be arguing about how do we get more affordable housing. I think we're still going to be arguing about how to fund more affordable housing. I think there's going to be probably even more NIMBYs saying, I don't want that. Yes, I want affordable housing, but I don't want it here. And that's going to continue to create the issues and problems that we have. And so unfortunately, that's not a very optimistic outlook, but I think that those are some of the big issues that are really going to be talked about over the next year or so. And, I think it's an important thing to be talked about, because we can keep building market rate and all this luxury housing. But if we're going to do that, we need to build a ton of it and build it as fast as we possibly can, so that the stuff that's being built today ages down to affordable housing. But I don't know what the real answer is. It's just we can't do nothing.
You're so right on something here, and this is one thing. I'll touch on this, and we'll get back to the predictions. But people don't realize that yesterday's luxury is today's entry level, and we went for a very extended period of time where new build lagged tremendously, which meant that yesterday's luxury was rehabbed, was worked on, was improved, which came up in value. So unfortunately, there's not much left at the bottom end except for the stuff that really takes some special skill, and it's overpriced to begin with. So yes, we're at a really significant crossroads about affordability. I care about this a lot. It's a really big issue.
I totally agree. We want to figure out, and obviously Homebase has entered the market kind of at the top end of the types of properties we work with. At least today, but we want to figure out, and we want to get this data so we can figure out how do we bring it down market as fast as we possibly can. How do we take all this technology that seems really expensive and seems like a luxury, but how do we use it kind of like Uber totally changed Uber and Lyft and all these totally changed transportation. You started as a black car service and it democratized transportation for everybody. How do we do the same thing for here? And I'm with you. I tend to believe that because of construction costs, because of skilled labor, the lack of skilled labor that we have, and all of these
tremendous lack of it, by the way,
tremendous lack. And the worst thing is it's going to get worse. More people aren't going into it, and we're doing,
if I totally fail at this marketing and podcasting thing, I'm going to become a carpenter.
It's very valuable, and I think it's going to become more valuable, right?
Yeah.
But with all those trends and all those things, I come from the belief that we need to build as much bit rate as possible, because it will come back down. It will make all the other affordable there. And that market rate's the only thing that you can actually afford and make money off of. You want real estate developers to keep building. Well, it makes sense why they don't build affordable housing. They don't get as high as returns. And most real estate developers are like a lot of venture capitalists, as good as your last investment. And so if your last investment was only a 8 cap, but you're usually, your competitor, your guy that you're trying to, raise money against is getting a 5. Like, well, what do you think you're going to get? You're going to get more market rate. Well, let's fund more of that. Let's get more of it. Let's try to be strategic about it. And hopefully that creates a lot more entry level, as you said, affordable housing. And then that brings everything else down. a little bit further too.
Totally.
I don't know what the answer is, but the more I try to research this and learn it, like that seems like the most pragmatic way to go about this. Because changing policies and changing, regulation and all those things are just a whole other issue in and of itself.
If you want to get political, I am not going to stop you. This is no holds bar. You go for it, man. You jump off that one there. All right. Question number 3. What's one industry trend you think will continue but wish would go away?
Ooh. I think it's co-living, and I think it's just like the hippie dippy version of it. I think some amazing co-living, or maybe that's the word of co-living, I think is what I wish would go away.
I just saw a Cretech said, or wasn't it Cretech that just said that co-living is going nowhere?
So I think in that traditional sense of what I'm trying to say. So if you look at, I had John from Star City on my podcast, Future Living. I think what they're doing is the future.
Okay.
They're starting to get a little bit away from the words co-living too. But I think they have like just different ways of explaining it. And the building is, they have some levels that are just true traditional co-living, but they have other more traditional living spaces and flexible spaces. And I think that's really going to be some of the future there. But
interesting.
I think the way I view it is probably more cynical of people hopping in the game because they see the word co-living and they want to try to capitalize on it. Basically uncreative real estate owners,
I see. So like, okay. So like instead of renting a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,000, someone sees co-living as a trend, and so they try rent the bedrooms each for $600.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that, a lot of commercial real estate owners will just say, "Oh yeah, we're a co-working space now." Well, you're like, well, there are different flavors of that. Putting a desk out.
I've been to co-working spaces that are just kind of, we had extra space, so it's now a co-working space. And then I have a WeWork membership, and it's not remotely the same in the slightest bit at all.
No, it's not the same. But generally the ones that are just like, the extra space, they're trying to treat it and sell it like it is. And you're like, well, I'm only willing to pay $89 a square foot because of all of these other amenities. Like I know what I'm getting over here, not just to have a flexible lease.
Yeah, my office, I was looking at some co-working space here in town, and it was $100 difference for me to have my own office. Yes, in an older office building, in a upstairs unit that had angled ceilings, but I just needed a quiet space. I needed my own space, and I wanted internet included. I didn't want to be locked in for 12 months. I wanted a gross lease. And so what they were trying to show me was like, we'll have weekly guests come in and, some Nespresso, or not even Nespresso. The Keurig coffee. Wasn't even good coffee. I want some single origin, fair trade. Okay. If I liked avocado, I want avocado toast on Fridays, but they didn't even have that. So I went with the boring old office because it just made more sense, and it cost me more, but it made more sense. All right. Last one here. What's one thing you believe will dramatically change or fade away in real estate as a result of technological advances?
Parking garages.
Ooh. Will they be the new landing pads for self-service helicopters?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think we're going to have to really figure out some interesting adaptive reuses for parking and parking garages through cities as more autonomy comes with vehicles, but also better public transportation, better last mile solutions. I think I've talked about this on my podcast a lot. Like in Denver, they've implemented some ordinances to make you not create garages that have any incline, so they be adaptively reused in the future.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's other places that are doing that, but the parking spaces are really expensive, especially in urban environments. They take up incredibly valuable land, and how do we reuse these things? And overall, how do we encourage less car ownership inside of a city? I think
we're selling our car for Chicago. We're not going to pay that monthly fee. I'm 4.5 years car free. Wow.
So that, and in Kansas City. So a lot of people were like, wow, how did you do that?
What do you use to get a car on demand?
Uber and Lyft.
Do you use anything like a Zip car or on the go or anything like that?
Every once in a while, I'll use a car to go.
Okay.
We've got them here in Kansas City. We've got probably 10 to 12 car to go spaces down here in Kansas City. So we've had that for a while, and I've been able to set up my life where I walk everywhere. My office and my home are within a few blocks. So that's definitely, being able to have that choice is definitely a fortunate advantage. But in doing so and building this company and, back to how we raised so little money, my personal burn is very low. I don't own a car. I don't spend all that extra money a month on a vehicle that would sit idle doing nothing anyway. And so, those are things that have been
$200 a month starting price for a spot in Chicago.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, it's a lot of money.
$2,400 a year.
Yeah.
Plus your insurance. A lot of money. Yeah. And insurance is going to go up in a city. There's no way around that.
It absolutely is going to, and you're not going to drive it as much.
Nope. We're planning on doing. We'll rent a car every other month and take a little road trip and just call that good.
Yeah. Totally. I think that on-demand access is, part of the future.
Yeah. Solid. We're going to move into the last three here. Blake, these are questions more about you, so our listeners can know you better. The first one is, what are you reading?
I'm reading a lot of different stuff right now, but I'm rereading the High Growth Handbook by Eli Gill right now. If you're a startup founder building a high growth company of any kind, it's a collection of stories and interviews. And it's really insightful, just from a founder's perspective, and being able to see that, wow, like you're not in this alone. Other people have hit the same issues and problems and all of these aspects in terms of scaling a company. But also it gives just good life perspective on how to manage people and work with people and all of that different things. I've just really enjoyed it. So I'm rereading it again.
Very cool. That's the High Growth Manual?
High Growth Handbook. It's by Eli Gill. Yeah.
There we go.
ELAAD.
Got it. Question number 2, who are you learning from?
Who am I learning from? Man, my team every day. I learn from my customers every day. I feel like I'm just on this hamster wheel of learning. It's funny when you start a company, people are usually looking to you, or you're the CEO or whatever. People usually look to you, the answers. And, sometimes you feel like you have them, but I've gotten to this point where, man, I'm so glad we have a great team, because I'm looking to them for answers. I'm looking to our customers for answers, and then turning around and figure out how do we fulfill that? How do we build solutions, create solutions? So I learn from everybody.
Very cool. And then the last one here, what inspires you?
And there's a lot, but something that really inspires me is to be able to inspire other people. I saw this art that was inspire to inspire, and it's just a circle. And I think that if you're doing things that inspire other people to do other things, that's really powerful and it's exponential. And so, I constantly drive myself to go bigger ideas, bigger ambition, bigger everything, and then try to execute with that. I feel like it inspires other people to do it. And this so far in my career, that's happened. I came up with the idea to take and help turn Kansas City into a smart city, and somehow that inspired people to do a bunch of other big things too. So, that's awesome. To inspire.
That's very cool, Blake. I greatly appreciate your time. And all the insight. I think what you guys are doing is pretty cool. Hopefully, one of these days, I got to figure out, I got to call all my different partners in the space right now and be like, hey guys, let's pull it together, find that perfect building. Let me be the test case. I want to experience living in a building where you guys are doing what you're doing. Before we go,
I want to build the Jetsons, right? Like that's when do we
build the Jetsons. There you go, man.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we head out, if people want to learn more about Homebase or if they want to connect to you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So we're on the web for Homebase, Homebase.ai. Find us on the web. On all the social medias, Homebaseai or at Homebaseai. Excuse me. And for me personally, you can find me on Twitter. I'm Bmills, IMBMILLS. Or find me on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find online.
There we go. Well, great, man. Appreciate it. One of these days, I'm going to make the journey down to Kansas City again. We'll
go on the barbecue tour.
It's actually been a little bit less than a year since I drove through. We went through and got some donuts, but we didn't stick around very long. We just got back on the road. But I do want to come through because I've been hearing good things about the city, and I know you guys have been going through your own little renaissance, resurgence. So, yeah, man, well, let's keep in touch and appreciate your time today.
Appreciate yours.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening to the TechNest podcast. Hey, don't forget you can get on the email list so you never miss an upcoming episode. That's technest.io. That's TECHNEST.io. Get on the email list. Go to the App Store, whether you found us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you found us. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends. And if you've got a guest or someone that you'd like to recommend, or if you think that you'd be a great guest on the show, hey, send me an email, Nate@realteampanda.com. That's Nate@realteampanda.com. See you guys later.